reason that the AP was barred, which they said was because they're not using the phrase Gulf of America, they're using Gulf of Mexico in line with their standards. And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable.
And this should have been done by Biden years ago. This should have never been allowed to happen. I know he's a friend of yours.
But couldn't Putin just withdraw his...
He's a friend of CNN. That's why nobody watches CNN anymore.
Karoline Leavitt and Kaitlan Collins have clashed once again, and this time the sparks are flying like never before. The tension between these two has been building ever since Karoline stepped into the role of White House press secretary, with every fiery exchange ending in her victory. But their latest confrontation has been so intense that people are now questioning how Collins still has a seat at the table. What exactly did Karoline say that left Collins stumbling over her words on live TV? And could this be the moment that shatters whatever remains of Collins' credibility? Stay tuned, because this showdown is one you don't want to miss. Over the past few weeks, Karoline Leavitt has been making headlines, often for her infamous back and forth with CNN's Kaitlan Collins, creating more sparks than a 4th of July fireworks display. But their most recent clash has triggered a media firestorm so massive it might just need its own disaster response team. It all started when Collins, never one to back down, thought she had Leavitt.
Which White House official made the decision to bar the AP reporter from the Oval Office and the diplomatic reception room last night?
Well, first of all, let me just set the record straight. It is a privilege to cover this White House. It's a privilege to be the White House press secretary. And nobody has the right to go into the Oval Office and ask the President of the United States questions. That's an invitation that is given. And there are hundreds of outlets on this campus, many of you in this room who don't have the privilege of being part of that pool every single day and getting to ask the President questions. We reserve the right to decide who gets to go into the Oval Office, and you all have credentials to be here, including the Associated Press, who is in this briefing room today.
This question may have seemed simple, even innocent at first glance, but don't be fooled. It was a trap, a setup, a calculated attempt at a gotcha moment. Kaitlan Collins wasn't just asking a question, she was laying the perfect ambush. Her focus was on that viral clip, the one she believed would expose a glaring contradiction within the Leavitt-Trump camp. With a smug grin and a confident stance, Collins thought she had it all figured out. But here's the thing, Karoline Leavitt isn't some rookie spokesperson fumbling over talking points. She's a political heavyweight. She saw Collins coming from miles away, and instead of walking into the trap, she flipped the script. Not only did she sidestep the setup, but she turned it right back on Kaitlan in a way that left the CNN journalists scrambling. By making it clear that access to the Oval Office isn't some entitlement for journalists, Karoline wasn't just taking a jab at Kaitlan, she was delivering a mic drop moment. It was a masterclass in control, flipping the narrative before Collins even realized what had happened. Now, listen closely to this clip, and I'll share my thoughts after.
And so the question here is this setting a precedent that this White House will retaliate against reporters who don't use the language that you guys believe reporters should use? And how does that align with the First Amendment commitment that you were just talking about?
I was very upfront in my briefing on day one that if we feel that there are lies being pushed by outlets in this room, we are going to hold those lies accountable. And it is a fact that the body of water off the coast of Louisiana is called the Gulf of America. And I'm not sure why news outlets don't want to call it that, but that is what it is.
Denied her precious gotcha moment, Kaitlan dropped the act and came clean. Her entire setup had one goal: to turn the Associated Press's sudden ban from the Oval Office into a weapon. The plan: to paint the Trump administration as hypocrites, loud defenders of the First Amendment who suddenly got cold feet once they were in power. It was classic media spin, and Collins was convinced she had struck gold. But this is where everything unraveled. Karoline Leavitt, always 10 steps ahead, wasn't about to let Collins rewrite the story. With a calm but razor-sharp response, she reminded everyone of her promise to hold the media accountable for their lies, distortions, and straight-up propaganda. And part of that accountability? Ensuring that outlets like the AP, who push misinformation without hesitation, don't get free reign over the most powerful office in the world. The message was clear. Press freedom doesn't mean freedom from consequences. And just like that, Kaitlan's so-called expose turned into yet another self-inflicted disaster. But did Kaitlan finally get the message? Of course not. Here she is, once again, sparring with none other than the leader of the free world, Donald Trump.
Mr. President, you won the White House in part because of high inflation. If your tariffs make prices go up...
We haven't asked you to speak yet, please. Right?
Trump shut her down, not because she was assertive, but because she crossed the line into outright disrespect. This is his office now, and the rules are his to set. He decides who gets the floor and when. And if he doesn't call on you, you don't get to hijack the moment. Simple as that. But instead of playing by the same rules as the rest of the journalists in the room, Kaitlan tried to bulldoze her way through. Trump wasn't silencing the press. He was maintaining order and ensuring other reporters had the space to ask their questions. The smartest move for Kaitlan? Wait her turn like a professional, not throw a tantrum hoping for attention. But of course, decorum isn't exactly CNN's strong suit. And Trump, he wasn't done with Kaitlan just yet. While responding to a question about Mitch McConnell, he took a sharp jab at her, just to remind her who's really in control.
RFK Jr. as the next health secretary, citing conspiracy theories. What's your reaction to that?
Well, I feel sorry for Mitch. And I was one of the people that led. He wanted to go to the end and he wanted to stay leader. He's not equipped mentally. He wasn't equipped 10 years ago mentally, in my opinion. He'd let the Republican Party go to hell. If I didn't come along, the Republican Party wouldn't even exist right now. Mitch McConnell never really had it. He had an ability to raise money because of his position as leader, which anybody could do. You could do it even. And that's saying a lot.
Donald Trump knows exactly how to deliver a burn, and this time, Kaitlan Collins found herself on the receiving end of a savage one. With just a few quick jabs, he had her scrambling, desperately searching for a comeback that never came. Then came the knockout punch. Locking eyes with her, he casually declared that she was just as incompetent as Mitch McConnell. The room froze for a moment as the weight of that insult sank in. Collins walked in thinking she could steer the conversation, but instead she found herself publicly dismantled. This wasn't just a casual dig, it was a precise, calculated strike. That exposed her bias, her flimsy arguments, and her failed attempts at playing hardball. Trump wasn't just shutting her down, he was sending a message to her and the entire press corps about who really holds the reins. And judging by Kaitlan's stunned expression, she got the message loud and clear. But Trump? He wasn't finished yet.
And this should have been done by Biden years ago. This should have never been allowed to happen. I know he's a friend of yours.
But couldn't Putin just withdraw his...
He's a friend of CNN. That's why nobody watches CNN anymore, because they have no credibility.
Let's be real. This isn't Trump's first showdown with CNN. His battles with the network go way back. And if there's one thing he's perfected, it's exposing their bias in real time. Remember Jim Acosta? The so-called journalist who built his reputation by interrupting Trump and grandstanding during press briefings, until Trump finally revoked his White House credentials after one too many outbursts. Now Kaitlan Collins is following in Acosta's footsteps. Same network, same tactics, same humiliating result. Trump has never shied away from calling out CNN's antics, and every encounter only highlights how desperate they are to trip him up. But time and time again, they fail. Because while CNN is chasing gotcha moments, Trump is playing for the win. You remember that infamous encounter between Trump and Kaitlan, don't you?
When they went to the Capitol and they were breaking into the Capitol, smashing windows, injuring police officers, why did it take you 3 hours to tell them to go home?
I don't believe it did. Oh, let me pull it out. I have to pull it out. So if you look at, on January 5th, the day before, I said, please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful. Stay peaceful. This was the day before, and this was in the form of Twitter. Now use Truth Social. I think it's far superior.
Trump asserts his authority and reaffirms his position as the true leader in this exchange. Firmly addressing her remarks, he makes clear, while asking questions is important, Kaitlan should have approached the discussion with greater respect and come prepared with facts.
I hope everybody's on Truth. If you look, January 6th, just at before 2:30, I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. This is right after, as it was happening. But what happened is they took it down I don't know why. I think they took it down because it was so good. They didn't like it being up there. I am asking, and we didn't know until I got it back, because now I have 90 million people waiting for me to go back, but I'm on truth, and I'm staying on truth. Listen, I am asking for everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful. No violation. We want no violation. We want no violence. Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. That was at 2:30. That was very early.
I love how Trump is pulling out receipts and shoving them right in Kaitlan's face, proving her and the entire woke media machine dead wrong. For years, they've pushed the same tired narrative that Trump incited his supporters to storm the Capitol and destroy democracy. They've painted him as a power-hungry tyrant, a so-called dictator in waiting, determined to rule Americans against their will. But here's the truth they can't stomach. Trump did call for peace. He did tell his supporters to stop and respect law enforcement. And now, with hard evidence backing him up, he's tearing down the media's manufactured lies one by one. This same journalists who spent years smearing him are now scrambling, twisting themselves into knots to spin yet another false narrative. But Trump had enough of their nonsense, and he called them out right then and there.
Why you held on to those documents when you knew the federal government was seeking them and then had given you a subpoena to return them?
Are you ready? Are you ready? Can I talk?
Yeah, what's
you
the
mind?
answer?
Do you mind?
I would like for you to answer the question.
Okay, it's very simple to answer.
That's why I asked it.
It's very simple to, you're a nasty person, I'll tell you.
They just couldn't stop twisting the facts, even with Trump laying out cold hard evidence right in front of them. The receipts they're undeniable. But did that stop the woke media machine? Of course not, because to them, it was never about the truth. It was about pushing a narrative, no matter how many lies it took to keep it alive. To the woke mob, Trump could do no right. If he called for peace, they claimed he didn't mean it. If he condemned violence, they said it was too little too late. And if he defended himself, well, that was just him playing the victim. The goal was never honest reporting. It was about controlling public perception. This is the same media that spent years amplifying baseless accusations, censoring stories that didn't fit their agenda, and gaslighting the public into believing fiction over fact. And now that Trump is standing his ground challenging their lies with irrefutable proof, they're freaking out, because the more people see the truth, the less power the media holds, and that terrifies them. Meanwhile, Leavitt is still having a blast at the expense of Kaitlan and her woke colleagues.
The historic proposal for the United States to take over Gaza, announced by President Trump last night, underscores this commitment. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting different results. President Trump is an outside-of-the-box thinker and a visionary leader who solves problems that many others, especially in this city, claim are unsolvable.
Yep, Leavitt is right on the money. Insanity is doing the same thing over and over while expecting different results. And if that's the case, the left and the woke media must be completely out of their minds. They've been setting the same traps for years, baiting, twisting words, taking things out of context, convinced that this will finally be the moment Trump or his team cracks, and every single time, total letdown. But do they learn from it? Nope, they double down, recycle the same tired tactics, and somehow still believe they'll get a different result. It's like watching a bad magician try the same trick over and over, hoping the audience won't catch on. They roll out their so-called big exposés, drop their bombshell reports, and just when they think they've got him, bam, Trump or Leavitt smacks them down with facts, logic, and an ironclad ability to handle the media frenzy at this point. It's not even a fair fight. It's like watching a toddler try to take on a heavyweight boxer and getting knocked out cold every time. But hey, let them keep trying, because if history has shown anything, it's that the left is better at losing than they are at realizing they're losing. And that wraps up today's video. Be sure to like if you enjoyed it and hit that subscribe